everyone. This is the quite late podcast of the GTA work in. And now I'm trying to actually, sorry, mute. There we go. I was doubling up the echo.
Welcome to Working Podcast. Sorry we're late.
Yeah, there you go. I'm Matt, one of the admins in GTA. The other admins here with us are Jason, Simon.
Hello. My mouth is full. Sorry.
And in the background is Adrian. Who
Actually, I am also on the panel,
but
are. You guys can't see me
because
we're
we're
just
many,
running off this on my
of
computer.
Technology and, anyway, I fell asleep in the tower recently, and I'm still not awake. So we're going to be talking about what it means to be successful in your hobby. And last week we talked about burnout, and now, how do you know if you're successful in your hobby? And let's take it away. Who wants to be first?
I'll do it. The guy in the fucking onesie.
There you go.
Sorry. Excuse my French. Anyways, just a heads up, guys. I literally got home before we were supposed to start from the gym, and I didn't get a chance to eat, so you're going to see me eating throughout this. Just a heads up. Anywho, success. Okay, so let's just go review what we talked about last time in burnout. How do you know you're burnt out? When you don't care to build, you just kind of bleh about it. I guess to put it simply, for me, success would be the exact opposite. It's like, cool, I'm having fun. Just doing something simple, like I could straight build a kit and just be happy with that process right off the bat. And just when I do a full build, maybe I'll just lean back and just look and go, I'm happy with this. There's no one little intricacy that's going to be on my mind for the whole day and like burning a hole in my skull when my nightmare is in the middle of the night. So, Matt.
Okay.
That's like the simplest way I could put it.
No, makes sense.
Yeah.
And any shortcomings of your eating or whatever right now are excused by your onesie. Pikachu is forgiven for everything.
It's spooky time tomorrow, then half day candy day.
That's
day
right.
afterwards.
Is it? Oh man, it is the 30th. My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh man. I guess I'll go next. For me, all I ever did want to do was just to build something up to my specifications, like the way, the way how some pros do it. Because I remember when I was a kid and I was building this, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'll never have the ability or technique to be able to build like these guys that I see, with all the fully painted stuff, like right in the windowsill of these Gunpla stores back in the day. And I was like, and then I remember, hey, what's up, Tom? Sorry, you just showed up on chat. So I remember this clearly, where this Heritage Con competition that Matt told us about was like, what, 2018, 2019?
Yep.
Yeah.
At least 19. For sure 19. It might have been 18.
Yeah. And I just entered it out on a whim, right? Like, I'm just putting it out there just to see if, to see how other people like it. So, and then I remember Matt going to me clearly saying, I think you're going to be very, very surprised at the results. And I was like, because he was there as a liaison to the IPMs community, and to, teach them, like, what Gunpla is and, like, what to expect, and, how, our, model culture is different from, theirs, right? And the similarities. And I remember saying to him, I got third?
The mild surprise of actually winning something.
Oh, jeez. And to this day, I keep thinking it was a fluke until I, placed in Anime North the following couple of months later. So, and for me, that, that far exceeds my original goal of just building something that I could be proud of, right? And far exceeds it. So that's when I knew for myself that I've made it to the hobby, or made it in the hobby in this case.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Jason?
Well, I get what you guys are saying. You guys kind of started as kind of take your mind off, right? Your everyday, and this is kind of like your building space kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I think I started the same way, and I think where I kind of not so much I'm famous or anything like that, but just I like to the point where am comfortable enough to show it to people was when I was looking at YouTube videos on paint techniques and etc. And I was thinking, I think I can mimic that, and it went horrible. But then the second time, I was like, okay, I know what I did wrong, and let me do it like this, and let me try and mimic that, and it actually worked out. And then
Hmm.
it was like, what? I think I'm confident enough to actually show this to people. And then
Hmm.
what I believe what makes you think you're good enough to do that is when you actually start getting positive feedback on what you show,
Hmm.
right? So you may not be a big, you know, model builder or whatnot, but just the fact that someone acknowledged it, right? At least in the very beginning, right? Because there's some guys that I know of that are probably thinking if I don't get likes on this picture, then it's garbage. It's a garbage build. Just the fact that someone acknowledged it, even if it's just leaving a comment, right?
Hmm.
Not a thumbs up, just leaving a comment saying, cool, right? Then you kind of think, oh, okay, people like that, people are you know what?
Sorry.
Good, I'm gonna try it, or can't wait to see what you do next, right? And I think when you see or at least hear people doing saying that about your stuff, you kind of have a self achievement where you're thinking, I think I'm either comfortable where I am, or you want to strive.
Very cool. Now, all three of you guys, actually, well, first of all, the thought I had listening to this is that all four of us have been in a hobby for quite a while already. And if anybody who's just starting was watching us, they'll be going like, "Oh crap! How can I get to that level? Maybe I should forget about this." So we're looking at it from a very different perspective, and so I'll take it one step back because I totally agree, and I have a very similar experiences as the other as my comrades here. Uh, but I mentioned last week David Brown of Hornet Hobbies and how he used to do little videos. May that store rest in peace. How he did little videos, and he generally just talked about or started out talking about, hey, it's hobby time. It's time to have fun, relax. You do this because you enjoy it, and if you're not having fun, why are you doing this? So that's the stepping off point. Does that mean you're successful? For some people, yeah.
Yeah.
As we progressed, we had more things that we wanted to do. We set goals for ourselves, goals in learning, goals in our techniques and tools, even, or tool use, really. And finally, you get to the point where you put yourself out there, you're judged, and you may win some medals, and hooray! And not everybody is willing to do that. And there are so many things, and I think we're going to use up our time unpacking this. you know for so many people, they'll say, oh no, I don't want to be a part of the competition, or I'm not into the competitive thing, and they'll win something and they'll go like, oh yeah, but on the inside they'll be like, oh, I'm kind of like that.
Yeah.
But they'll still be all humble and everything. But
I
it's
was not humble when we did the Leo contest. I was such an asshole. I'll explain it a little bit after Matt goes into this tangent.
Oh,
yeah,
Explains.
But yeah, no, it's I've started that ball rolling. So go for it, because we'll be coming. I think we'll be sort of
revisiting
developing
our
these ideas as we go.
these
So go
interconnecting
on.
stories.
All right, story time. So a while ago, one of our local hobby stores, Panda Hobby, had a contest in response to the release of the Leo high grade kit. And as we all know, the Leo was essentially, I think, was the first kit to go into that simplified high grade model, where it's an army builder. It's designed so you can build like a multiple of these at once.
Hmm.
So they hosted a contest where you would be put into a team, or you make a team, and you gotta make a team based off of your theme. Matt and I were in the same group. We were on the flight. No, we were on the ground team.
Yes.
Adrian, I believe, our good old friend Adrian here, was on the flight team. Jason, were you a part of this or no?
No, I wasn't on the car.
Okay, so
Air Force, by the way, not the flight team.
sorry, you were in the air. My apologies.
Yeah, we were Army. That's right. That's
We're
right.
Army,
Army.
right?
We called
so,
ourselves ground. Yeah.
Yeah, we basically made ourselves the ground forces. So, for me, that was my first ever full custom build. Before that, I never airbrushed. I never had the opportunity to do any of that. So, Matt walked me, and ironically enough, the owners of the hobby store too, Panda, they taught me how to airbrush, and our group worked together on like how to improve our models, ideas, things like that. And we actually won because we were probably the most. It's not because of like really quality, because like I knew for a fact that my kit had some flaws and stuff, but I was pretty proud of it personally. It was my first full custom build, painted and everything. There were some flaws, yeah, but we actually won because ironically enough, we were like the most consistent in theme.
I wouldn't say
And
it's
also our buddy
ironic,
Roger made a
though.
base for us too, but whatever.
No, you guys were incredibly. The entire thing had synergy.
Yeah.
Right? Like you guys even had like a display base from what I saw, and then, you know, like an actual diorama-esque piece with all five of you.
There was a plan, and we actually followed through the
Yeah.
plan. We actually
Well-deserved
sense.
win.
And that's why we won. And of course, instead of being like, "Oh, thanks guys, good job, we won," I literally walked up to my team members like, "Oh, congrats on getting first place, congrats on getting first."
Wow. What a jerk.
Like, yes. Good job on first place, man. Yeah, you too.
Oh man, I remember those days. I was like still newer to the community, so I haven't really talked to anybody yet.
Yeah, and then once we started warming up, we all decided we just became D-gents real freaking quick.
Oh man, bad. The only other person I knew, because it was me and Tristan. Tristan was on my team, and then we were Air Force, right? But then the owner of the store said, "Yeah, you guys had a really, you know, the colors and everything was really consistent, but your guys are Air Force, and the amount of crap you guys put on those suits, there's no way any of these other ones can fly, except maybe mine, because mine actually transformed into a plane."
The thing is, though, Adrian, your model was the only time I've ever seen the Starbill Strike backpack look decent.
I turned a Leo into a peacock. It was amazing.
He did the wing Gundam transformation, flip it over.
Yeah, flip it over, the legs go up, and then here you go.
It's a flying machine.
2 arms carry the guns. All right, it has guns now too. It's great.
That was amazing.
And that competition and group builds in general, where you put people together and have them work together and build friendships, like that Leo contest is one of the reasons we're all here, but we're working together as
We had
the
weekly
team now.
meetings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then afterwards, well, there was the Team Saga that's pretty much all the teams, or all the people that wanted to still keep participating from all the different teams sort of followed Adrian's lead and
Just
became one big group, one team, and they would actually have, because actually I didn't join Team Saga. I was just sort of like a guy on the side, and you guys actually had builds. You had a couple of your own.
We went out to dinner together. We had a chat where
We had several contests too.
Yeah, internal too.
Yeah. That was
So
fun.
that was amazing. That was truly community building, really.
Yeah, and we bounce ideas off each other, and like how to like get around certain issues with our customs. Like, oh, what do I do here? I think our favorite one was from the Leo contest. How do I hide this massive bulge? Like, oh, just super glue this on top. No one can see it afterwards. Amazing moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, those were fun
that's
days.
there is a, like, in terms of the hobby as an overall thing, from my point of view, that's an incredible moment of success, because we created a group of friends, and I'd love to see that happen for all of GTA. We have 1,300 plus members. Not everybody's super active, and there are people that are really active, and not a lot of people lurk in all these groups. Not everybody is comfortable posting.
Well, to be fair though, the bulk of most Facebook groups are lurkers.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And that's fine.
And that's totally fine. And it's trying to, leave the idea of COVID and whatever aside, but the original idea of GTA was to bring people together in person and hanging out, and that is that was actually quite successful for several years, and I hope that in the future we'll be able to bring more people out, and maybe it's not going to be immediate. Maybe that's really a 2023 kind of goal, but that's another aspect of how you look at the success. I don't want to say, oh, we're like community leaders. We're sort of community janitors. I really, the way I look at what we do, we just try to keep everybody happy and clean out all the
We're
crazy.
firefighters. We put out flame wars.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
That's better. Sort of. I'll be honest. I kind of do the janitor stuff, and I'm happy with it too. I put out flame wars too, but I know that it's you gotta put in work to have something happen. So we're trying to build up a community and build up the hobby as well. And spreading knowledge is another part of our mission, and hopefully we're doing that pretty well.
Knowledge.
And that's part of the what I would also define as success in the hobby, because those are the roles we've decided to take. So there's success on a personal level, and there's success in the hobby sense as well. So
well, success in a group sense, I would say, or the community, right?
But also as a hobby, the hobby as a whole. From like to tell a little IPMS story, the tank and plane modelers in southern Ontario, there was a group of guys that got together in the IPMS. IPMS is a system of clubs that's international. So they wanted to increase the talent and knowledge and skill within southern Ontario. And this was several stores, several of the really advanced, like what we call master builders. And they put together a plan that was pretty much looking at a decade of putting together more competitions, having tutorials and training sessions and so on and so forth within stores, bringing in really excellent builders and guys that are like industry pros to teach people. And one of the things about what the point of the shows was to make the pros available, and the guys who already have the knowledge, and spread the knowledge to others who also are entering the competitions. And over that decade, or rather at the end of that decade, Southern Ontario had some of the best builders, or really what it really comes down to, it's the average in Ontario was incredibly high. What you would have, which you'd usually have like 2 masters in a huge in a region, and we'd have 20, 30 that could be considered at that level, and then they started like getting ultra competitive. So one downside was that the competitive side of the shows got to be a little
it was very steep then.
Yeah, but in terms of the drama, there wasn't a ton of drama, because these are adults, or mostly.
Well,
so sometimes not all of them act like adults, but and we know people in our community that do that too, and that's fine. Like people who care about, for them success is getting that medal, and that's fine too. If you're looking for that kind of validation, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just as long as you're not making other people miserable in the process.
Yeah, don't be that guy just shit posting because somebody's like, "Oh, it looks terrible." It's like, buddy, that's his first time.
Yeah, exactly.
To be honest, I know several people who some of the people in this community, I wouldn't say like some within the GTA roster and not part of our roster. You know, there's from both sides. You know, I've heard they try to do constructive criticism and it just comes out the wrong way, or like, you know,
Some people
Right.
just gatekeep in general, and so it's really unfortunate.
yeah, it's unfortunate, but you find it in every hobby, right?
Yeah.
But it's how we respond to it is what makes or breaks the hobby itself.
And that was one of the to try to be fair to the guys who, like we saying, gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Their intention, their vision and intention is very similar to ours. They also want to build up the hobby and have, you know, the best builders and whatever. But they're going at it by trying to get the guys that are already good and making them better. And you can't actually, that gene pool is too small. This is why the IPMS model, which is what I sort of tried originally back in 2018-19, I sort of brought in here, and why GTA became very focused on the new members and bringing knowledge to new members that will also grow the hobby in general, grow the market base so that more stores can open and just more of us get stuff cheaper because more of us are buying, so yay. But focusing on new members and building them up, and there's nothing like teaching to actually help you grow in your knowledge.
Yes.
So having those people that already, you know, they started a while ago and now they're like, you know, if there's 10 levels, and I'm making this up, so like, you know, they're now level 3 out of 10, but they're already able to teach guys who are level 1, and by doing that, it's sort of everything grows,
turns into a cascading effect, is what you're saying.
Remember, guys, if we keep buying more and more stuff, we'll get the greatest success of getting official P Bandai in Canada.
I still really doubt that, but yeah, we could try.
But still,
It's success. Don't stop at my dreams.
Some of the people you see here are working on that very, very hard. The purchasing part.
Yes. Thanks, Matt.
Remember, guys, we're talking about success in the hobby, not financial success.
Yeah.
There is no
Well,
financial
that's
success
the other
in this
thing,
hobby.
that some people collect the model kits. Some people buy kits because they like the box art, and they actually they're part of it is having the stuff. I'm definitely in that hoarding group, unfortunately. Like I've always had a problem with, you know, like Star Wars figures. I went ape shit and bought everything, probably 5 times, and then anyway, like I got into disc golf, and you need 3 discs. I bought like 100 because they're all different weights and they've been different. Oh, and look at this one's pretty, and this one's got like a hollow sticker on it. Anyway, at least fortunately that stuff is super cheap. They're like 10 or 20 bucks a disc. And that was over some time too. Wow. But yeah, so success in a hobby could also be collecting. You look at sort of a near-ish hobby to ours, which is actually part of the figure painting group. These are the toy soldiers. If you think back to what kids were doing in like the 1900s and even earlier, basically you had the lead soldiers that you would paint, or they would come painted, and you know, kids play with them, and then you could have like, you know, the whole regiment of whatever. You know, you've set them up. You see some of these things in even in the Royal Ontario Museum. There's on that staircase there's a display of toys.
I really love that display so much.
Yeah.
I just see it, I'm like, nice.
And so that's also part of, to a certain extent, it's a sister hobby to ours because there is painting involved. Sometimes sometimes they get professionally painted, but and heck, we have people in our hobby who buy professionally painted kits. Or, well, Jason would never say that he's a professional painter, but he has sold a number of his builds, and you know, that there's a group of people who decide to turn their hobby into a business, and at that point, it's anytime you make something into work, it stops being a hobby. In my point of view, you might still be doing something because you love it. I know Tom has talked about how stressful it got, working for other people. And it's it's something I wouldn't be able to do, because if I built it, I don't want to let go. It's my little baby. Oh. And also I take so effing long that I'd never finish anything for anyone. So, but anyway, all I've been doing is talking. Somebody else talk.
Well, like Matt said, a hobby, it's a hobby. You're supposed to have fun. You're not. So, a hobby doesn't always have to be a side hustle. It's like, oh, like those like douche tuber influencers who are like, oh man, I got side hustle. I got something. Turn my hobby to a side hustle. It's like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You could just be like, I like giant robots, so I build plastic model of giant robot because I like giant robot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think guys who are into firearms, they're going to the range to make money? No, every time they fire a bullet, that's like a few dollars out the window. You think they're there to make money? No, they're losing money the moment they go into that range.
It's a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, so a hobby doesn't necessarily have to make you cash. It can, and if it does, and if you're happy with that, okay, good for you. But a hobby is just a hobby.
I think there's a lot of guys in that boat. Is that what they're actually trying to do it's turning into a side hustle because it's expensive, so they're trying to make the hobby pay for itself. So they're not trying to turn it into their day job, but it's like, honey, oh, that receipt you saw, I'll make sure that something gets done so that the money is equaled out. Sure, honey, I'll sell this, and then you'll see. And so I think there's that's
your model to purchase from your significant other.
Yes.
Nope.
Yes, etc.
Never have to. Never have.
There's a meme out there where it's like, when I'm sad, I buy models. When my wife sees the bills, she gets angry. When I'm sad, because I buy models.
Or the Squid Games one goes, "What are you doing here? You're financially stable," and then the next scene is his backlog.
Or I saw this other one. It was, I don't know if it was a real store or not, but they had a button. It's like, would you like us to put a note saying congrats on winning the contest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add an extra $1 just for that little sign.
Well, that was actually a real store in the States that had a little plaque.
Yeah.
Or a little post at the cash register. For $5, I'll print you a different.
I'll print you a different receipt.
Print a different receipt with your total. So
funny.
Store owner saving marriages.
Yep.
Relationships.
Exactly.
That's a real G right there.
That's how you get return customers, correct?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I actually want to have to put onto this podcast as well is I know you guys saw some of the topics and what's written there, and is actually to have store guests.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that might be feasible in the future, maybe, but for now, since we're starting up, just still trying to find our feet and our foothold onto this type of media, so that's something for another day.
I mean, speaking of store guests, the owner of our local store, he's actually told customers to stop buying stuff because he sees what they buy and they're like, yo, you've bought a lot. I think you need to stop.
He really does.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
He's like, you don't need this. And I'm like, I know. Yeah.
And they literally told us, if you don't want to buy it, then don't. Seriously, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I like everything.
Actually, one of the other things that tell me, for me, I've never made it, if you get what I mean. You're constantly growing in this hobby too, right? So
the moment you stop growing, you start stagnating.
Exactly, right? So one of the things that also got me thinking that, maybe that I've improved over the years is I remember thinking to myself, I'm never going to be able to mix paint to get a specific color I want because I'm terrible at it, right? And then I go ahead and, after a couple of years of practicing and stuff, I ended up making my own different style of paint myself. right? Something that I've never dreamed that I would do.
Yep.
Right, and I like it because it's unique and expresses who I am, right? And it's not like you can find this specific color off the shelf because I mixed it myself, right?
Yep.
For me, it's not that I can't mix paints; it's just I'm too freaking lazy to.
All the
Like, I'm just
testing
like,
and the spoons,
Simple, clean and simple. That's my style.
simple and clean.
I think that conversation, my biggest fear is painting something a color that I think looks good, but when seeing it on the actual kit is like, oh, this looks horrible. So like several different mock-ups of different paints, and the worst part about that is by the time I pick a paint I want, I don't know how I made it.
Ooh. That's why I have a little book, or
Yeah.
you write notes somewhere. Always.
Yeah, always
Yeah,
a little
Mr.
bit.
Excel sheet of all my backlog.
Well, what I've been doing is take a tester out of on the back of it. I dab what paint colors I use.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also what percent, like how much
Percentage wise.
By the time I finish mixing them, once I know which paints or which colors I use, I kind of know what ratios of colors I use
Mm-hmm.
to get that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like I have like the kit I just built. It had a purple to it, and I had 4 different types of purple that I used. Very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I always, whenever I'm doing anything with mixed colors, I always write it down because I do have a tendency to put things on the shelf.
Yeah.
And if I come back to a project a year later, I'm not even going to know what I even started with.
No, there it is.
So I need to make those notes.
Yeah. I carry a 5-star binder, like a 5-star notebook, just for that. It's cool too because it has a pocket in the front, so you can actually keep your instruction manuals in there and reference which page you want.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very cool. The one thing that Adrian just started talking about growing in the hobby,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is another, for me especially, a very I don't want to say that's how I define or measure success, but it's something that gives me a great deal of satisfaction that I was able to learn, figure this out, and you get that I made this. Finally I'm able to, and it's even I figured out how to use a tool. I figured out how to mix paints. I and so on, and a lot of that. Once you learn that, you say, "Oh wow, yeah, that's actually quite simple." And so many of the things we do as human beings, once you have the proper materials and proper tools and get a general idea of how to do it, we learn and then we become better. And after 10,000 repetitions or whatever, we become masters if we so desire.
Mm-hmm.
So that is part of how you could sort of define success, or at least here's a better one. If I'm satisfied, that means I'm successful in the hobby. For me, that's the thing. And unfortunately, at being a perfectionist, not to touch on the OCD side,
Yeah.
I get really critical of what I'm doing. So so satisfaction equals success in Matt's book. There you go.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying with, when you're trying a new technique for the first time and it comes out exactly the way you want it turned out to be, that dopamine hit is incredible.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, I've done this, now that I know I've done it, that means I can repeat it. And this is going to be like, on all my shit.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that meme that's been going around. It's like, hey, this is pretty cool. Where your clothes at? And I'm like applying it to this with like you do a new technique for the first time and it works.
Yeah.
And that's what Adrian just said about doing something and having it turn out exactly how you envisioned or planned it. That has always been a huge thing for me, and unfortunately, that's part of that perfectionist thing. Like, it's easier for me to actually, as an example, I talked about playing disc golf, and I could do just the most beautiful drive that gets me right to the pin, but I'm still pissed off because the disc didn't fly in the exact shape that I wanted it to. So I succeeded in what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm unhappy because the disc didn't do what I wanted it to do. And that's the same thing can happen in our hobby.
Yes.
I would have a harder time finding an example of that here because we see
There was an attempt.
yeah, there was. It's what I end up doing is it's hard for me to replicate that feeling of unhappiness in the hobby because I'm working on something and I won't stop working until it looks right. So I get to that moment that I'm really happy that okay, this is done. But that's why it takes me like months to do something that people will do in a couple of days. So that dopamine hit, the really, really good dopamine hit, is when it hits, when it's right on the first time, like, or very close to the first time. Like, I want to do this. Oh, there it is. I found it or made it or whatever.
So, going off of what you said about being a perfectionist and then, working on something, for hours on end and having it just the way it is. On the other side of things, what I've also learned while building that I would say, puts me at a better position to succeed in this hobby would be letting go of things, right? Like, maybe there's a little, especially if you're not entering it into any sort of competition where, everything is key, right? Where fit and finish is number one thing. Like, if a piece of paint chips here or there, right? If it's in a really, really inconspicuous spot, you don't have to redo the whole piece, right? Because, right? Like, just remember, posing's a thing too, right? You can hide things while posing, which I have done before.
So say we all.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's learning to be
really
satisfied with what you have and knowing, am I really going to spend 7 hours, stripping the paint off this thing, priming it, curing it, waiting, and then redoing everything? Or, if it's just going to sit on your shelf and you're not really going to look at it on a daily basis, let it go. Save yourself 7 hours.
I mean, yeah, Zaku Aurelius, I jump back to this video every now and then, but he made a video about, like, perfection in this hobby, and he basically said, like, guys, everyone, there's always going to be a mistake when you build. Even some of the best master builders, if you go over their builds with a fine-tooth comb, you're going to find a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Oh yeah.
Actually, there's a famous story in the Chicago Worlds. Anyway, the big competition, huge competition for figure painters, and it's judged on the open system, which means that there could be 10 golds, 20 silvers, and 3 bronzes. Is basically if you paint it to a certain level. If everybody, if there's 4 guys that painted just immaculate figures, they're all gonna get gold. Hooray! And this master, super famous guy who, putting out articles and all that in magazines, comes in and he gets a silver. His work was. So he's like, what do you mean silver? And just look at it. And the judge looks him in the eye, takes the figure and turns it around. And the guy forgot to paint the entire back of the figure. He focused so much on the front, and the front was so damn good. It still deserved a silver being unfinished.
Yeah, that's impressive. That is very impressive.
So you can get those blinders, and it can take. That must have been days, if not weeks, of him forgetting to do the back.
Yeah.
So that's when you failed a task successfully.
Oh my goodness. To still get a silver.
Yeah.
I've had something simple to that. In a Warhammer shop back when they had one in
Square One.
There was one guy. They had a competition about painting these suits, and this one he painted this suit really good, but he still got like 3rd place, right? But everyone was like, "Oh, that's gonna get first." And when the judges came around, and he's like, "Hey, why?" Because I was with him.
Yeah.
He's like, "Why did I get 2nd place? 3rd place?" He's like, "You painted great, no problem, but you painted it in one direction. So pretty much because it was such a small model, you look down on it, right?" but he literally took it and flipped it upside down, and none of the under panels were shaded or lined.
Uh,
Oh.
That's what lost you
Yeah.
the and then he flipped it back.
You can't even get mad at that point. You're like, ah,
No, this
no,
Well,
I'd be like, I'd be kicking myself, being like, oh really? It's just like, I forgot this.
Stupid.
Oh man, my self-esteem
Learning
would take a
moments.
hit.
See, and this is here's the just said self-esteem.
Yeah.
The way that the hobby works right now, online at least, with Facebook, Instagram, and people showing their stuff, and a lot of guys using that as self-promotion sometimes because they're trying to open up a little bit of a side hustle, whether it's painting or whatever. Anyway, but not everyone. But there is something, you're basically putting yourself out there, and we mentioned this before. So there is also a risk with putting yourself out there, and I think that's why most people resist it and lurk rather than showing stuff. And especially if you get to the wrong group or community where basically people are, ripping into every model and are just the competition is to I'm the best because I yell the loudest.
Basically, sexual
make this-
appendage measuring
Yes.
contest.
Yeah.
Trying to be very, very political and not cause any
wait, what
flags.
contest?
Yes. So that's and that's where you almost get this feeling that or atmosphere that the group itself is almost a constant competition. And some people thrive on that. They want it, they need it, and they need to measure those appendages. And I guess that's fine if that's how you derive satisfaction. But I don't think I think it's not about satisfaction, but sort of filling a dark hole. But anyway, that's just my pop psychology looking at it. Anyway. But
the lines between this is just a collection, not a competition. When you
Yeah.
post on Facebook,
A collective. Yeah.
collective, yes. Just because this is your interpretation of what you like.
mhm.
Like if I post a mobile suit, for instance, that was originally green per se, but I repainted the thing to look pink. I did it in a way where the main color is pink and it has blue accents or something, makes it look good to me. That's what I think looks good. Right? You, as an other side of the coin kind of person, right? Your opinion, I guess. Also, I guess we can contribute this to like faceless comments, right? Because if I guarantee you, if these people were in the same room, you wouldn't care any of that. Because it's more or less a faceless comment. Yeah, they're gonna rip into people. They don't care about like the outside opinion of this is just a collective, right, or an opinion, right? This is it doesn't look right to them, so it's not right. And that's why that thought process isn't right. We all know it, but when you actually see it, right? Someone being ripped into for something that they thought was nice, right? People also think is nice, but then you have that one outlier that's no, this is not right. Well, if it's not constructive.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, though, just for putting yourself out there, I feel like, yeah, sure, people shouldn't be such assholes to each other, but also anyone who posts anything online, you have to learn to accept the fact that
There's gonna be jerks out there.
Yeah.
there's someone's always gonna try to shit in your bed.
Yeah.
It's a thick skin, right? There's gonna be feedback on it, and there's a really good chance it might not be good feedback. Every time I post something, that's why I kind of post, to be honest with you. But every time I do it with that in mind, right? Or
Which is it's too bad actually. Yeah. It's sad.
Like, so guys, if you're gonna post your builds and be upset when someone doesn't like it, that's okay, because at the end of the day, like, when you put yourself out there, you gotta learn to accept the fact. I mean, sure, they shouldn't be an asshole, but you gotta learn to accept the fact that you can't please everybody.
Yeah. And it's kind of the Wild West. So one of the reasons that
Expect the absolute worst, honestly.
yeah, And one of the reasons that GTA is fairly friendly is because we, for a while nowadays, we don't really have to, that janitor job is not that hard. But back in the past, there's so many toxic and negative people, and some of them turn around and are actually really nice and constructive members now. You know, we had conversations with them and said, you know, these are the community standards that we have created, and this is the kind of community we want, and participate or don't. And
Some people left and joined their own community and made their own community, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So hey, more power to them.
Yeah. And in the end, we're able to, like, I look at whenever I post stuff, it's I'm excited about it and having fun. I'm sort of sharing the joy of the hobby, and it's that's the way I would like it to be perceived. And you know, I want feedback. I don't know, like it's I don't want to say, oh, and I don't, you know, I want kudos or I don't want, because it's always nice and people say, hey, you know, that's really cool and whatever not, and it's a nice boost to the ego. It's not the main thing I'm looking for, but that's always nice too. And you can't really help. I don't know how many, you know, Mother Teresa's are out there who are posting stuff that are not going to get a little, you know, tickle when people like your stuff. So it can't be. It can't be helped. It's just that it's part of it. And I guess maybe there's nothing wrong with getting a little ego boost from posting your stuff. But if you're starting out and you know you worry about the trolls or worry that people are not going to like your stuff, think of it as a part of the learning process. You're asking questions. You know, here's what I did. How can I improve it? Or here's what I did and I was having troubles with X, Y, and Z. And that way your you know, your third build is going to be really good and your 10th build is going to be amazing. So that's derive satisfaction where you can.
Guys, keep in mind though, you know what a lot of YouTubers do so that they like don't get burdened down by comments and stuff like that? You know what they do?
They disable the comments.
They don't read the comments.
Oh, yeah,
That's
that's
a
true
lot
too.
of
Yeah.
YouTubers do. They don't read the comments.
Yeah.
There's that option too, guys.
There is.
Yeah.
Going
So
back
a lot
at sorry.
No, go for it.
Okay. Going off on what Matt said, that actually started me on my journey to become a better, to focus more on my techniques and get to where I am. Was actually started off in the first Mecha Showdown, and you know, I entered the competition thinking I was hot shit, and I wasn't. And then I was extremely humbled, and that's when I said, okay, let's learn why this is the way it is. So then I would ask, you know, the top builders in the area, hey, you know, what do you think I can do to improve this? And then they gave a lot of very good techniques and advice, and that I use to this day, right? So it's just, if you're looking to improve your builds, just be prepared to be, you know, humbled a little bit, right?
This is part of the reasons why the in-person events or even just like competitions, but even like club meetings and so on and so forth are so much.
I missed those.
I would say better, because they you know, you can get a lot of feedback and decent conversations going online, but when you're together with people, even the trolls are going to be actually really nice guys, because they are nice. They just, when they're online, they
different person.
Yeah, and they figured that that's the way they're supposed to behave sometimes. I mean, whatever. That's there's no way to discuss the you know, the entirety of stupidity of the online world. But anyway,
No, that's impossible.
When it's in person, there's more thinking involved. You will never get someone approaching and saying, "Hey, your thing looks like shit."
Well, also, guys, keep in mind, in person too, if you talk like that, there's a risk of you getting socked in the noggin.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Well,
true too.
that's the thing. Like, there's the approach, right? So if someone comes up to me, "Oh yeah, this looks great," I would have done it like this. That's so much more friendly of an approach. Opposed to online, the unknown comment or unfaced comments where it's like, "Yeah, that looks like shit." because the question of over we're not face to face. So
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's I agree fully. In person, things are more peaceful. Things are more constructive. Things
Hmm.
are more talked over properly.
Yeah. Well,
So
you
And
could
also, you can see the models much more clearly.
exactly as I was
Uh,
gonna say.
the photographs will show a lot, but it's only a certain angle, and
Mhm.
sometimes you can use those angles to hide things,
Mhm.
Which is what
which
people
is
do.
yeah, so say we all. But it's the ability to discuss things, like even when somebody starts talking about your build with you, you'll actually see things that weren't there before because they're seeing it differently.
Mhm.
And it might even be like, oh, wow, you did that behind the knee pad, or it's like you actually painted behind the knee.
Mhm.
Because that's very often you have the inside joints don't get painted properly
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
whatever, and you don't even think about it because you paint before assembling, or before
Yeah.
you have a it's part of your process and just happens naturally.
Mhm.
Yeah, some
And you
people paint and then they build it, and like Tristan and I, a friend of ours, Tristan and I, we like to put it together first, so we know like how it comes together, which parts
Mhm.
we can seal for
Mhm.
painting, which parts we can't, things like that.
Mhm.
which is what you should be doing in general, but then you need to disassemble it to paint every
Piece of it
corner
afterwards.
and piece of
Yeah.
that part. But anyway, no, the point is that you will learn something about your own build from others when you discuss your build. So
There's actually a photo that like I just recently shared with the rest of the admin group a while ago, which actually has both this way, Matt and Jason in it, and they were all looking at his hanger build with the
mhm.
I see it.
LEDs,
See the
and they were
terror.
talking. Sorry.
You could see the terror in my eyes with that.
No, it embodied like I really love that picture because it embodies what this whole group is all about, right? The learning from each other, the community, and
Family.
right, exactly, right. And it's like you just see Matt, Jason explaining to Matt what's going on with his build, like, and we have another member of our group just looking on, just gleaning information as they both talked, and I'm like, that is GTA right there to me anyway. And
Exactly.
when I see that picture, it goes back to, are we successful? I would say yes. Right? We started a community, or we maintained a community at least, and changed it into something where it fits our new mission statement.
Yep.
Mhm.
We are actually really lucky, I think, because we found each other, and this is we're talking about the much larger group.
Yeah.
There's a good like 20 guys here, and girls actually. Sorry,
Yeah,
there's
a
20
lot now.
folks here who are part of like active members of this group,
Hmm.
and we all found a thing that we love and share. But through that, we also have friendships that are just general friendships. So that's
Hmm.
something that a hobby can provide you. Now,
Gen-
as a
I would
and
say
some people,
general friendships that may have never happened because of
yes,
this,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, we
For
would
me,
have never met.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me that was really important too because when I was in high school, university, I didn't really know many people who were like into hobby building, if any at all.
Hmm.
Like, it was seen as a weird niche thing, and then after university, and the Facebook group and the meeting in person, I'm like, there's other nerds like me.
I'll bet you in the school there were a whole bunch of them there, but they only built during their teenage years, and they
And that was
were
it.
embarrassed because somebody said, "Oh, it's a weird thing," and just like, "Oh, I better." Yeah, that was a weird thing. So, because yeah, and I stopped building when I went to university because they didn't have any money and time. So, and it's only in 2014 when I realized, hey, wait a minute, I have money and I have
Have
time.
time.
I can get back to this hobby. Why don't I? So,
Yeah, like I know, like for Adrian and I, we're in the construction industry, and
Oh, yeah.
sometimes depending on when I have to go somewhere, it's interesting because I usually have like a bit of time myself. So sometimes I find myself like coffee, little breakfast, nippers in hand.
Yeah,
Like
no, I
5 in
didn't
the
bring mine
morning,
to the
just, like,
job yet.
building.
I've done that. I've built at Tim Hortons a few times, and and that, it's not an everyday kind of thing. So I usually have that just the schedule is so tight.
Mhm.
But I'll whenever I have a little travel box that I can just throw a few tools and snip off a few parts and just
Oh,
take
that's
out
nice.
of town. And we're gonna meet up to see a movie at 10 o'clock at night. So I'll be there at 9, and I'm sanding away, and the other guys trickle in, and then we go into the theater and whatnot. So yeah, it works. It's like if I have free time, I'll either read a book or bring my kid along. So
Mhm.
It's
well,
also
parts of it.
nice to have friends who won't judge you or just appreciate the fact you're really into something.
Mhm.
Like, I have friends like that now, thankfully. Like, my best friend, funny enough, she was like, "So how much have you spent on this hobby?" And that's the one question where I'm just like, we don't ask those kinds of questions. 'Cause nobody's
How
gonna
much
want
do
the
you
answer.
weigh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like-
question.
How much do you?
Like, we don't ask those kinds of questions. Nobody wants the answer.
Oh,
We don't want the
impinges
answer.
on the happiness. The
I'm
reality.
happy.
Yes.
we don't ask
Now I'm
that.
sad, so I'm gonna buy more stuff.
That's right.
That's usually the case.
Shopping therapy. Retail therapy.
We're running short on time here now. Actually,
Yes,
we
yes.
got a couple minutes left. Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today and telling us your success stories. And we wish the best for everyone watching this. On
Well,
with
one
your
last
success.
thought
Yeah.
is that I think the bottom line for
Mhm.
everybody listening, or if success in the hobby is when you're happy. I think that's really the root of everything that we've been saying. And because your hobby is here to make your life better, more pleasant, and bring you joy, if you're finding that you're burning out or you're unhappy with the hobby, maybe get off the online communities that are making you feel bad, or learn more, engage more to learn more so that you are satisfied with your builds. But all in all, this is about making you happy. So figure out what makes you happy and then go on with your hobby.
And thank you for that, Matt.
Yes, so I guess, well, right now we're gonna go off and start. Well, I'm sure some of these guys are gonna have lunch and whatever. I'm gonna start the
Build day.
virtual build day, and we'll be building all this on this rainy day. So thanks for listening, and we'll
See you
see
there.
you guys soon.
Yeah. Later. Well.